here are your hosts, Austin Barker and Dr. Tony Bean.
All right, welcome back. Thanks for listening to Christian Worldview with Tony and Austin. This is hour number 2, Friday edition, Backpatting Day. Glad you're with us. What am I supposed to do? Oh, yeah, I'm supposed to tell you all about what I do, right? Director of Church and Community Engagement for the Tim Brazier campus of North Greenville University, where Christ makes the difference and where we are equipping transformational leaders for the church and society. I serve as Director of Public Policy for the South Carolina Baptist Convention, and my co-host is the gardener extraordinaire, Mr. Austin Barker.
Hi, everybody.
We have a special guest on the program this morning. It's always great when we have an opportunity to talk to Representative Jeff Duncan from here in South Carolina. Representative Duncan, thanks for joining us today.
Well, Tony and Austin, it's great to be on with you guys. Thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk with you. A lot going on in the world right now. I heard that the Olympic bobsled team, the men's bobsled team, renamed their bobsled Biden because nobody's made America go downhill faster.
Okay, bada bing. We'll start with a
little levity to start, Tony. Come on.
That's all right. That's right. I like that. I'm going to remember that. I'm going to use that at the Greer Chamber lunch today. In fact, that's pretty good. I do want to start with. I got about 5 issues here. I thought we'd just kind of go through them. I'm going to take them in order that I wrote them down. Talk about the Supreme Court and President Biden's decision to make this an affirmative action pick, as opposed to a Supreme Court pick that is based solely on the merits. Now, I want to be sure that I want to hasten to say that there are plenty of African-American women who are qualified to serve on the Supreme Court. This is not about saying that they're not. It's about suggesting that race should not be a requirement. How do you see this?
Yeah, the color of someone's skin should never play a role in a decision. Martin Luther King said we should be judged by the content of our character, not the color of our skin. And I think you're exactly right. There are plenty of African-American women, Hispanic women, and others that are very ably qualified for the Supreme Court. But there's a huge field across the nation, across all demographics, that have the qualifications to be a good Supreme Court justice. He's boxed himself in. He's made this about affirmative action, as you said, and it should never be about that. I like the fact that the court does reflect the population of the nation with Hispanic and women and black and white justices. But you've limited yourself to a select pool, and the nation needs good quality Supreme Court justice regardless of the color of their skin or their ethnicity.
Well, and here's the thing. To me, what all this comes down to is the president announcing this and making an emphatic statement, even on the campaign trail, and now as the opportunity presents itself, that race is going to be a factor. I don't think if you may take that into consideration as you look at the court, and you may ask the question, can we find a candidate that is qualified in this particular round, that we could, is this the time to elevate someone to that position? I think that's the kind of stuff that you talk about behind the scenes. You don't come out and tell the American people that's going to be your primary consideration, because it puts race front and center at a place where it shouldn't be the chief consideration.
That's exactly right. And he's limited his pool of selectees to be nominated. And what I want is someone that understands the United States Constitution, understands the role of the Supreme Court as a check and balance, and on the legislature for not passing, bills that are non-constitutional, and executive orders from the administration that are non-constitutional, and rule in the constitutionality and not look at everything through the lenses of race. And I think that's really what they're looking at. And it's just a crazy time. I think Biden has boxed himself in here, and it's wrong for America.
Let me ask you, I read an article the other day I thought was interesting. It put forth a scenario where you could actually have a Supreme Court nominee filibustered. And maybe you've heard this, but, because of the unique situation where you have a 50-50 split in the Senate with the vice president breaking the tie, there was negotiation between the Senate Majority Leader and the Senate Minority Leader that came up with, all right, because of this split, we'll put our committees up at 11-11. instead of having one more Republican or one more Democrat, since we have an even split in the body, then we'll put 11 on each side. Well, the Judiciary Committee, if all 11 Republicans said no to a Supreme Court nominee, then that nominee doesn't get out of committee unless that nominee is called out to the floor through a process by which the nominee's name can come to the floor without the Judiciary Committee recommendation. But if that happens, then they fall outside of the rule of the filibuster. So what could happen is you could have, if all 11 Republicans stood firm, you've got a nominee that could be filibustered by the Republicans. Is that, and then of course it would come down to whether or not Kirsten Sinema and Joe Manchin or other Democrats would see a nominee as being too progressive to be on the court. Have you heard that? Any talk about that?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, that's Senate rules and the makeup over there, exactly what you said, and we'll see how it plays out. I'm curious to see. You know, Lindsey Graham has voted for Barack Obama's nominees before, and he said elections have consequences, and he supported Kagan and Sotomayor. So we'll see what Republicans over there are willing to do if they have that mindset.
Right.
There's a couple of names that have been floated out there that I think are too progressive for this nation. They don't reflect the makeup of the nation. There are some good quality, Justice Childs or Judge Childs from South Carolina would be a good choice if he put her forward and would probably be able to overcome a lot in the United States Senate. But we're going to see how this plays out. The ball's in Joe Biden's court, and we'll see what the president puts forward. And America ought to be looking very closely at the mindset of this president and whether he's leaning more toward progressivism as we see the legislature, the House of Representatives under Nancy Pelosi lean, or whether he's going to try to reflect the will and the mood of the nation.
All right, let's switch topics here. How concerned are you about Russia's aggression toward the Ukraine? Do you see this as a real threat? Is it a possible threat against NATO? And what about President Biden's response? He's moving some troops around, moving some military assets around to protect NATO countries, but not necessarily directly it says there's not going to have troops fighting in the Ukraine. So how do you see this?
Well, first off, Ukraine's not a NATO nation, so I don't think he has legal authority to move troops into Ukraine. Ukraine is a friend, an ally, but there's no treaty that says we have to protect them or whatever. So I don't know what legal authority the president had, but we all ought to be against this naked aggression by Putin and Russia and the troops there. The biggest thing that worries me is the Nord Stream pipelines bringing energy sources into Europe.
Right.
And Vladimir Putin has used those as levers of influence over Europe, and now they're relying on Russian gas for their heating needs. When we had the opportunity under President Trump, we put sanctions on Nord Stream 2. We offered offered help for LNG import terminals to bring American gas, which we have an abundance of, into Europe and lessen their dependence on Russia. But now they're tied to Russia, and they're joined at the hip. And so the European countries, as I've said many times, are now really influenced by Russia and the decisions they make in supporting Ukraine. But they also have NATO treaty alliances where they have to support the other NATO countries if this thing escalates. So Biden is in a sticky wicket on what he does here. And there is a lot of support for Ukraine in the United States Congress, but he doesn't have legal authority right now to move troops into Ukraine other than doing some exercises in limited numbers. So Putin has the advantage here. He has a huge number of troops and equipment staged on the border. I saw today that there might be talk about a red flag operation that Putin was planning to try to justify his incursion in Ukraine, and now we know about it. The gig's up. So we'll just see what happens, but I'm concerned about this thing escalating into much more, and I do stand with Ukraine. I don't want to see Russia go in there. They went into Crimea, and we really didn't do much at that point in time. So we're going to see how this plays out, and it's very alarming, Tony.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the point that you made about Nord Stream goes to whether or not sanctions are going to be effective, because that we could put crippling sanctions if the United States and our European allies stand together. But if you have Germany who decides that their gas supply is more important than making a statement against Russia at this point, it could nullify or weaken sanctions to the point that Putin wouldn't care. We put sanctions on him before. But these sanctions could be crippling if we stand together. But I think there's a possibility of that not happening. Let me ask you this real quick.
Let me add something to that real quick. And people need to be aware that we're importing Russian oil into this country to the tune of about, I think, 170 something barrels a day that we're refining or using here in this country, and that's money that's going to Vladimir Putin. That's money that's supporting up his oligarchy and patting his pockets. The United States is doing that. So sanctions on Nord Stream 2 are important to lessen Europe's dependence on Russian energy. But guess what? America is dependent on Russian energy too, because the Biden administration has shut down new oil and gas leases, ended pipelines here, and really made us more dependent on foreign sources than we need to be, because we have the resources here in this country, and we are padding Vladimir Putin's pocket and actually paying for his incursion in Ukraine, really.
Well, and under the Trump administration, we should point out that the United States became the #1 producer of oil and natural gas in the world. We actually became an exporter. And now all of that's been reversed in a very short period of time by the Biden administration and their policies. We're going to take a quick break, and we're going to come back and continue to talk with Representative Duncan. When we come back, I want to ask you, be thinking about the threat of the alliance between Russia and China, because that's being played out at the Olympics right now as we speak. We'll come back in 3 minutes.
If you put off honoring your parents, eventually it will be too late.
This is Real Family Life with marriage and family expert Dennis Rainey.
My dad didn't have a heart attack, but it was the next closest thing to it. And we came from a fairly communicative family. So I feel like he knows how much I love him, but there are specifics that I still haven't given to him.
I'm glad he still has a chance to show honor to his father. I really didn't begin to measure my father's life until 10 years after his funeral. At that time, I honored my father by writing a tribute. It was an important process for me. It helped me to heal from the grief of losing him, and it reminded me to live according to his example. But I have one regret about the tribute I wrote my dad. I wish he could have heard me read it to him while he was still alive. Occasionally during his lifetime, I showed him appreciation, and it was usually in superficial ways. I wish I could have had at least another 30 minutes with him in this life. I would have read him that tribute and officially given him the honor he deserves. One final thought. If you're blessed with a dad who's still living on this earth, why don't you consider writing him a tribute and then reading it to him? For the rest of your life, you'll be glad you did. I'm Dennis Rainey, and that's Real Family Life.
Every 2 minutes, a woman in the U.S. is diagnosed with breast cancer. And in that split second, her life changes forever. The toll of breast cancer is great. The need to support those who are battling the disease today is even greater. We're fighting alongside patients because we know one moment can change a lifetime. United by hope, we can end breast cancer. Join our fight. Save lives.
But it's a rainy night in Georgia.
Your weather this morning is brought to you by BNC Cleaners and Hillcrest Cleaners at bnccleaners.net.
Well, happy Friday, everyone. It's going to be a soggy morning, highs in the low 50s. We'll start to see this rainfall wrap up mid-morning and early afternoon. We'll get a couple more isolated showers later today, but overall, we're looking at a dry weather pattern taking over for tomorrow and Sunday with highs near 50. For WYFF4 weather, I'm Perella Lewis.
Right now, cloudy, 61 degrees. You're listening to his radio talk, and this is Christian Worldview with Tony and Austin. Here are your hosts, Austin Barker and Dr. Tony Bean.
So we're getting some running commentary, Representative Duncan, from some of our listeners.
Yeah, we have like a back channel going on Facebook. It's kind of cool.
Yeah, because they're watching the opening ceremonies of the Olympics, which are taking place right now live. And one of the things they're talking about is that, you know, when the Ukrainian delegation came in, they got about 6 or 7 athletes. President Putin was very stern-faced. But when the Chinese delegation came in, he gave them a standing ovation. And, of course, he's over there, and he and Xi Jinping had this kind of summer bromance going on between the two. how concerning is that? What would that mean for the United States and for world security if the Russians and the Chinese sincerely have some type of alliance?
Well, they do have an alliance. There's not a degree of separation between China and Russia when it comes to governance and communism. And so they do support each other and always have, even though it hadn't been in your face like it is at the Olympics. You have to be alarmed that, China is threatening Taiwan with aircraft and other things. You've got North Korea launching missiles and the communist regime supported by China, and now you have Xi and Putin sort of cozying up. But it's concerning. I think Xi supports Putin in whatever he does in Ukraine. I think Putin supports Xi in anything they do against Taiwan. And we've got a weak president of the White House, commander-in-chief, who really, if a number of things go on at the same time, I don't know that he has the cognitive ability to really manage all that, to manage what we might do to support Taiwan, because we do have agreements there, and what we might have to do in NATO to support Europe. If there's a lot of different things going on, I'm afraid this president doesn't have the ability to manage all that.
Yeah, I think any kind of real alliance between those two countries calls into question the superiority of the United States and our ability to lead the free world, because we would have formidable foes. And as you said, we have a weak leader. And the combination of those two things, I think, puts us in peril. But, that's one of those things we have to see how it plays out. What about inflation and
We'll pray, Tony. We need to pray that
absolutely
those scenarios don't play out, because that would not be good for the free world.
What about COVID-19 lockdowns and mandates and inflation? Let's put all three of those in the basket, because under the heading of things that are threatening our economic recovery and threatening our economy. So take those in any way you want: inflation, COVID lockdowns, and mandates.
Well, first off, inflation is real. People feel it at the grocery store. I think Republican messaging is just on what Americans are paying at the grocery store, with huge inflated prices out there, and you can go through every category, whether it's bacon or steaks. And we saw a fight at the Golden Corral up in Pennsylvania because they didn't have steaks and things like that. People are starting to really see the impact of inflation. Gasoline's up almost 50%. Used cars are up if you can find them. Bacon's up 18%. Beef's up 18% or more. Just normal everyday purchases, and it's because of the Biden policies, the lack of being able to manage the supply chain issues and deal with the trucking issues in California and other things that are causing the supplies. And then you throw COVID-19 in there, the requirement of COVID vaccine mandates, and showing your vaccine card, show your papers, please. It's like going from East Berlin to West Berlin through Checkpoint Charlie in many places in this country, and it's wrong. I think you're seeing the Johns Hopkins report come out, the lockdowns, masks, and all these things didn't help. We now know that fully vaccinated and boosted people are getting COVID. We've got people on record from CDC and WHO and Fauci's crowd that say, if you're fully vaccinated, you can still get the virus. You just won't get sick or as sick, and you still have a viral load that causes you to transmit the virus. That's always been the case. For over a year now, we've known that fully vaccinated people can still have enough viral load to be transmitters. But we're requiring all this vaccine mandate, especially in the healthcare realm. And these people have been on the front line of COVID-19 without vaccines, wearing their PPE, dealing with COVID patients, may have caught COVID, may have not, may have natural immunity, may not, but they don't want to take the vaccine because it was rolled out rapidly. We don't have the data on it. You have to wait 75 years to get the data on it. And a lot of people in the healthcare realm are concerned about the lack of data and research that was put out there and peer-reviewed when the vaccine was rolled out, so they don't want to take it because they're smart. But now they're having to lose their job because they won't take the shot. So those people, those personnel are not on the front lines now at these hospitals. We're seeing shortages with nurses and doctors in hospitals across the country that are having to deal with an uptick in Omicron or any other variant, and they're not available. So now we're going to bring in foreign nurses and foreign doctors to work in American hospitals. We've got the personnel here that we can employ if we just do away with these stupid vaccine mandates that the administration is pushing down for whatever reason. I believe the reason is about just control. They want to control the American people, and it's wrong.
Well, and you're seeing in Australia, I thought it was a very telling thing that the Australian Parliament is actually thinking about mandating by law that every citizen has to be vaccinated. I saw that story this morning. I mean, this is how far this is going in some places.
If you don't get mandated, they not only strip your citizen status, but they take your last name and your hair color as well, I've heard. So
yeah.
I'm kidding.
Well,
a little levity there from Austin Barker now, right?
Yeah, well, no, but I understand what you're saying, but you're talking about government overreach on an unbelievable level. In Canada, you've got this trucker revolt that's taking place that's got Justin Trudeau in a lot of trouble because these guys are blocking major access and border crossing points to make the point that the vaccine mandates are hurting them and hurting Canadians in general. And there are Americans that are going up and joining this as well. But I think the bottom line on this is you're exactly right. The vaccine, look, I'm fully vaccinated and boosted, okay, because I'm 64 years old, and if I get sick, I think that the vaccine will keep me maybe from getting seriously ill, okay? That is not a reason to have a mandate. If it was like smallpox or measles, where you have the chance to wipe out something through vaccination process, I get that. But it's been proven that the vaccination is never going to stop COVID. So it doesn't make any sense to have it. Final question about that. National Guard. I mean, my son-in-law is in the National Guard here in South Carolina. We're going to start having guys kicked out today if they don't get vaccinated. Is there anything that can be done about that?
Well, we've worked very hard with the Adjutant General in South Carolina and letters up here into the Pentagon from members of Congress to try to stop this mandate for men and women in the military. We're going to lose. We've spent a lot of money training Navy SEALs and people in the National Guard at all levels in the military, right. And we're going to lose valuable assets to have the trainings necessary at a time when Vladimir Putin's got troops on the Ukrainian border threatening Europe and everything we talked about in China. We're going to kick people out because they make the personal choice of what they're going to inject in their body or not. It should be a personal choice. It shouldn't be mandated by the government, and it should never be a condition of employment, whether it's employment in the National Guard, the military, or an employment at a hospital or a security team at Savannah Riverside. It should never be a condition of employment.
Exactly.
Representative, I'm interested to know, what committees, I know what committees you're sitting on, but I'm just interested to know, apart from the questions that we've asked you, what do you have in the perk that you're particularly concerned about that you're advocating for right now in Congress?
Well, right now we've got the SAVE Act we're pushing because somebody in South Carolina was taken off a kidney transplant list because they refused to get vaccinated. They were sick. They didn't want to inject something else in their body because they had diabetes or needed a kidney, had kidney failure. But the government, the powers that be, took them off the kidney transplant list. That should never be the case. You shouldn't be denied health care services just because you refuse to make a personal choice of what you put in your body or not. So we're working on that. We're also working on the fact that we have illegal aliens voting in city elections and now state elections, and there's push to allow illegal aliens, non-citizens of this country, to vote in our elections. That's wrong. Only citizens should have the right to vote. We shouldn't water down our electorate. Citizenship means something, and the right to vote is something you get with citizenship, and illegals shouldn't vote. So we're working on that as well. I filed that bill 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 2 Congresses ago. It's a new issue in the news now, but I've been working on this issue for quite a while.
Yeah. Final question, just quick answer. What do you think the chances are that Republicans are going to do well in the midterms? I know everybody's saying there's going to be a blowout. That actually makes me a little bit nervous, because it's a long way to November and a lot of things can happen. But do you think we'll be able to hold where we are and make some real gains come November?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to take the majority. It's just a matter of numbers now. Redistricting help Republicans across the nation. The loss of seats in places like Illinois, New York, and California, and the pickup in Florida and Texas gives Republicans extra chances to win in red states. And then you see all the retirements of Democrats. I think there's today maybe number 30 of Democrats that have announced retirement, and those are a lot of pickup seats for Republicans. So I think the chances are great that we take back the House. We need 218 to have a majority. I think the number is going to be much higher than that. and we'll see. But I think it's very hopeful. And you look at grocery prices and gasoline prices, things that are hitting moms and dads in their pocketbook at home and eating up their discretionary income. That's only going to continue. I don't see any daylight changing that. So those things are going to transcend into the election, and then with CRT and BLM and vaccine mandates and all these things that intrude on our liberty, that's affecting both Democrats and Republicans, and people are about tired of it. So all that's going to translate to votes for Republicans in November.
Congressman, it's always great to have you on the show. Let's end with just a word of prayer. I want to pray over you and your family. Lord, we come before you in Jesus' name, and I want to thank you for Congressman Duncan, his willingness to serve, the principles that he serves by, and I pray that you would watch over him and give him wisdom and give him favor in the eyes of other leaders as he puts those principles on the line. I pray for his family. I pray you'd watch over them and protect them and give them good times together, because I know there's a lot of times when the congressman has to be away. I pray that when he's at home, you would protect his family when they're away, and then when he's at home, they would have just a great time of fellowship and renewal together. I pray all these blessings on him in the name of Jesus. Amen. All right, my friend.
Amen, brother. Thank you so much, Tony. God bless you.
God bless you. We'll be back in 3 minutes with Senator Josh Kimbrell. Stay with us. His Radio Talk thanks the McCravey, Newland, Sturkey, and Clarity Law Firm at McCravyLaw.com for sponsoring